Welcome to another non-animated episode of the Everything podcast. Because I started by calling them, instead of non-animated, bonus, but at the moment, due to time constraints, I can't really do bonus episodes. So they're going to be called non-animated. Animated, you're obviously going to know what they look like. Non-animated, and the non-animated ones will tend to be longer than the animated ones, obviously. But yes, so in this non-animated episode, which has been recorded on the 22nd of February 2024, I don't quite know when it's going to release because after everything's recorded, I have to do some technical things till it's all sorted. So yeah, I don't know when it's quite going to come out. We're going to do a Big Finish news roundup from everything in January 2024 and February 1st to 21st, because I'm recording this on the 22nd, and if any news comes out later on today, I don't want to say that it's all the news from today as well, when it's not. So yeah, that's what's coming up in this episode, or this non-animated episode of the Everything podcast. And next up, I'll be talking about Torchwood Sabotage. So, as I just said, we're talking about Torchwood Sabotage now, and Torchwood Sabotage has been written by James Goss, who does loads of Big Finish things and writes things and produces things. Yes. And released actually today, the 22nd of February 2024, and stars Ace, played by Sophie Aldred, and Mr. Colchester, played by Paul Clayton. The CD and download is £10, and the download is £8.99. They're British prices. You can get them worldwide on bigfinish.com. And yeah, that is Torchwood Sabotage. Next up, I'll be talking about Torchwood 1, I Hate Mondays. Next up, as I've just said, we're talking about Torchwood 1, I Hate Mondays, which is releasing in May 2024. To be fair, let's try that again. We have Torchwood 1, I Hate Mondays, which releases in May 24 and stars Yvonne Hartman, played by Tracy Ann Oberman, Yanto Jones, played by Gareth David Lloyd, and Tommy Pierce, played by Timothy Bentic. I'm going with it's on CD and download for £22.99. Download for £18.99. There are British prices, obviously in different countries it'd be different amounts. And the three stories in this set, so we have Dinner for Yvonne by James Goss, By Royal Appointment by James Goss, and Nerves by Joseph Lister. You would have noticed that James Goss also wrote Torchwood Sabotage, which I've just talked about. So yes, next up I am talking about the anthology related to Torchwood, which will become clear in a second. So yes, next up I'll be talking about the anthology. As I've just said, talking about Torchwood anthology. So we've got Gareth. What's wrong with my speech today? Even like with words and stuff. Even with my voice and not feeling very well. Maybe that's it. I don't know. We're talking about Gareth David Lloyd's Torchwood anthology, which will release. There'll be three stories: one in March, one in April, and one in May 2024, and stars Gareth David Lloyd as Yanto Jones. You can't bundle just the three stories, but I think there's 6 and 12 story options available at bitfinish.com. So the CD and download each is £10.99 and the download is £8.99. So, and then Gareth David Lloyd, they also are written by Gareth David Lloyd. So we have Tube Strike by Gareth David Lloyd. We have Missing Molly by Gareth David Lloyd, and Disco by Gareth David Lloyd. So Tube Strike will release in March. Missing Molly will release in April, and Disco will release in May, making three stories: trilogy, anthology, even anthology. And Gareth David Lloyd plays for Big Finish and used to play Yanto. Is the reason that? But next up, I'll be talking about the 12th Doctor Chronicles. You only die twice. So as I've just said, we're now talking about the 12th Doctor Chronicles You Only Die Twice. Now, it's called the 12th Doctor Chronicles because, as we know, the 12th Doctor is played by Peter Capaldi, who has decided not to do Big Finish because he's doing lots of other exciting, busy things. I think there's stuff on Prime Video and Apple. Anyway, so he's done the same with the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, way too busy to do Big Finish as well, so he's been voicing him. He's finished that. He's moving on because he's a proper actor now, Jacob Dudman is. But he's doing this. I think this might be the last one. We're not quite sure, but at the moment it seems to be. So we've got. So, but yes, that's kind of where the Doctor Chronicles range came from. So we have You Only Die Twice, which releases in March 2024. It stars Jacob Dudman as the 12th Doctor. It can be purchased even on CD and download for $22.99 and on download for $18.99. There's three stories in this box set, similar to Torchwood One I Hate Mondays. We have The Sunstrike by Georgia Cook. We have Never the End is by Ben Teds, and You Only Die Twice, the name of the box set by Theo Trethaway. Next up, we'll be talking about Sontarans versus Rutans, Born to Die. So, as I've just said, we're now talking about Sontarans versus Rutans, Born to Die. But before we get to Born to Die separately, we're going to talk about Sontarans versus Rutans. So it's it's not a box set because they're released individually, but it's like, it's kind of a story arc across 4 months. So January, we had the Battle of Giant's Causeway featuring the Eighth Doctor. We then had in February, which has come out just, we've got the Third Doctor with Children of the Future, and we've got Born to Die in March, which we'll talk about in a second, and then in April we've got Sontarans versus Rutans. I think it's called In Name Only, which will star the War Doctor. So in Born to Die, Sontarans versus Rutans Born to Die has been written by Tygan Byrne and releases, as I just said, in March 2024 and will star the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker, and Charlotte. What's wrong with my voice today? Pollard, played by India Fisher. It can be bought on CD and download for $10.99 and download for $8.99. I don't think this is a Sontarans versus Rutans, but I think you have to buy them separately. But yes, and coming up next, we'll be talking about the Sixth Doctor Adventures, the Quinn Dilemma. So yes, like I just said, we're now talking about the Sixth Doctor Adventures, the Quinn Dilemma, which also releases in March 2024. So in February, there was two Third Doctor releases, and in March, there seems to be two Sixth Doctor releases. So it will star the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker, Perry, played by Nicola Bryant, Mel, played by Bonnie Langford, Constance, played by Miranda Rayson, and Flip, played by Lisa Greenwood. It can be bought on CD and download for $22.99 and download for $18.99. Now, there's 6 stories, but I think they're only half an hour each. It's like one part. So we have The Exaltation by Jacqueline Rayner, Escape from Holy Island by Chris Valentine. No, I've merged names there. Let's try that again. Escape from Holy Island by Chris Chapman. Sibling Rivalry by Robert Valentine. It's because it was the different lines, and that's why. We got Children of Revolution, also by Robert Valentine. The Thousand Year Thaw by Chris Chapman, and The Firstborn by Jacqueline Rayner. Next up, we will be talking about the Fifth Doctor Adventures, the Dream Team. So as I've just said, we're now talking about the Fifth Doctor Adventures, the Dream Team, which releases in April 2024. It stars Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, Janet Fielding as Tegan, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, and Matthew Waterhouse as Adric. It can be bought or pre-ordered even, as most of these can, because they're not out yet. CD and download for $22.99 and download for $18.99. There are 2 stories in this box set. We have the Merfolk. We'll go Merfolk, like Suffolk. No, Merfolk. There we are. The Merfolk Murders by Tim Foley and Dream Team by Lizzie Hopley. So next up, we will be talking about the novel adaptations goth opera. As I've just said, we're now on to the novel adaptations goth opera, which has been written by Elizabeth Miles and releases in July 2024. It stars Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, Janet Fielding as Tegan, and Sarah Sutton as Nissa. We have two purchase options here, or pre-order options even. CD and download for $22.99 and download for $18.99. Next up will be the Fourth Doctor Adventures Metamorphosis. It's now time, as I've just said, for the Fourth Doctor Adventures Metamorphosis, which releases in June 2024, which stars Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor, Christopher Nolan as Harry Sullivan, Eleanor Crooks as Naomi Cross, Annette Badland as the Toymaker, and Jeffrey Beavers as the Master. It is available for pre-order on CD and download for $19.99 and on download for $16.99. The three set we have Matrisoka, apologise for the pronunciation, lots of Y's and K's there, which has been written by Aurora Fernley. We have The Caged Assassin by Matthew Sweet and Metamorphoses by Lisa McMullen. Next up, we'll be talking about Missy, Bad Influence. Yes, it's now time for Missy Bad Influence, which releases in May 2024 and stars Michelle Gomez as Missy. It is available for pre-order on CD and download for $24.99 and download for $19.99. There are three stories within this box set. We have Missy and the Time Assassin by David Quantick, Bad Apples Brigade by Freddie Volster, and The Baron Robbers by Lou Morgan. Next up, we'll be talking about the Eighth Doctor Adventures Echoes. Next up, as I've just said, it's time for the Eighth Doctor and the Eighth Doctor Adventures Echoes, which releases in May 2024 and stars Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor, Nicola Walker as Liv Chenka, and Hattie Morahan as Helen Sinclair. We have two pre-order options like usual, CD and download for $22.99 and download for $18.99. Three stories. We have Birdsong by Tim Foley, Lost Hearts by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle, and Slow Beasts by Dan Rigoletto. Next up, we'll be talking about a new Big Finish podcast titled Into the TARDIS. Yes, so we're talking about Into the TARDIS, which will release every Saturday from March 2024. It's a Big Finish podcast. So we've got the official Big Finish podcast where they dramatize some of the stories and talk about what's coming out and talk about other Doctor Who news that's come out that week. This is a little bit different. So it's Into the TARDIS. It's being released on every podcast platform: Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, Amazon Music. Google Music isn't one. I made that one up accidentally. Yes, and it's going to star Colin Baker as the Sixth Doctor. Well, it's not actually going to start. He's going to be, kind of does. Will be an introduction from him, and will feature audio dramas, which you would normally have to pay for, are going to be completely free. So it's going to be half an hour. So like a 1 hour story. Like the first one they're doing is a 10th Doctor and Donna story titled Death and the Queen, which is going to be split across 2 weeks. Half an hour, the first half an hour in the first week, and the second in the second week. We don't know when in March it started, but we know that's when it's starting. Next up, which is the big one, which is the one that I've been looking forward to talking about, is Dark Gallifrey, Cated and Time Wild, but that's not too for you. So as I said, next up we'll be talking about Dark Gallifrey. As I just said, it is now time to talk about Dark Gallifrey. So, Dark Gallifrey will release between April and September 2024, between April and September 2025, between April and September 2026, and between April and September 2027. So, it will star Samuel West as Morbius, Sir Derek Jacobi as the War Master, Michelle Gomez as Missy, and Eric Roberts as the Master. You can purchase each story separately for CD and download for $10.99 and download for $8.99. There's loads of different bundles. There's an extreme bundle for all of it. There's year bundles and stuff like that. And we know 6 out of the 24 titles for Dark Gallifrey. So the first six are as follows: Morbius Part 1 in April 2024, Morbius Part 2 in May 2024, Morbius Part 3 in June 2024, The War Master Part 1 in July 2024, The War Master Part 2 in August 2024, and The War Master Part 3 in September 2024. So yes, as I've already stated, so how it'll basically work is it'll be like trilogies of stories. So obviously we know we've got one with Morbius, which we'll talk about, the War Master. Then we'll have ones with Missing and the TV movie, or the Eric Roberts Master, coming probably next year. And then there'll be some others to come as well. So yes, Dark Gallifrey. That's why I thought I would write it all down, because it was very big when it was announced and was very complicated as well. As well. But next up, I'll be talking about the Paternoster Gang, the casebook of Paternoster Row. So, as I said, it is time to talk about the Paternoster Gang, the casebook of Paternoster Row, which is the final Big Finish news segment that we're going to talk about in this non-animated episode of the Everything Podcast. So we know that the Paternoster Gang, the casebook of Paternoster Row, will release in April 2024. Will star Neve McIntosh as Madame Vastra, Catherine Stewart as Jenny Flint, Dan Starkey as Strax, and Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor. It will be available. Well, it's available now for pre-order for CD and download for $19.99 and download for $16.99. And the story titles within the box set, The Paternoster Game, the Casebook of Paternoster Row, is Anne of a Thousand Light Years by James Kettle, Paternoster by Gary Russell, and The Gentleman Thieves by Lauren Mooney, and where am I up to? Stuart Pringle. There we are. Yes. So those are the stories. So yes, that is what I've actually caught up on all the Big Finish news that I have missed. Next up, I'll be concluding the episode. Yes, so as I just said, that's actually all the news covered in this episode. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of all the Big Finish news. Maybe what was your favourite, maybe what was your least favourite. And as always, any suggestions of what you would like me to cover on the channel, please let me know that in the comments below. Remember, you can also like and subscribe. And that's it for this Big Finish news roundup. Goodbye.